Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and we are going to specifically talk about the value of a Dungeons and Dragons story and why the value is much higher than you expect, and the value is much higher than anybody really ever expected it to be, and what's happened to bring the value of a Dungeons and Dragons story to the highest value of any story that can be told on the planet Earth today. Let's get into it. All right. So let's talk about stories, right? So one of the things, like I'm a powerful rejectionist that there's nothing new, right? Like I believe that we are living in a fully unprecedented time. You go on the internet and you'll find a whole bunch of people say, oh, everything's happening in America happened with Rome. It's all an echo. Oh, wrong. It's just wrong. We are living in a truly unprecedented time. Man flew in 1903, was on the moon in 1969, and technology has catapulted humankind, into. See, we're all catching up. Has catapulted humanity into a new era of true, it's really incredible what is happening with humanity overall, and it's really just it's incredible. There's just so much change happening for humans so quickly. All right, so let's discuss this. All right, so how were stories told? Originally, stories were told shamanically, right, by shamans, and there'd be essentially one, maybe two storytellers in an entire tribe, and one shaman would come forward and just tell the story to the tribe, and nobody wrote it down, but they all knew it because they all remembered it, right? And these stories were carried down generationally, right? And there was value in those stories, right? Then the writing came along, and we wrote things down on stone tablets, right? And that was there for millennia, and some of the most valuable stories you could tell were actually, I think, the most valuable stories told were told on stone tablets and writing ways before the Gutenberg press. When the Gutenberg press came out in 1500s, it allowed us to capture our stories down and then distribute them faster and better than we had ever done before. The internet was another one, right? But where we are right now is you have this situation where, and I do need to give a caveat. I still think that the stories found in sacred texts are more valuable than Dungeons and Dragons. So I do need to give a caveat. Actually, I'll just adjust what I said. Dungeons and Dragons are the most valuable secular stories that can be told on the planet, by far. Sacred texts are out of this, right? I think there are more valuable stories being told in sacred texts than Dungeons and Dragons can tell. But according to if we consider the secular world, Dungeons and Dragons tells the most. So caveat secular. Dungeons and Dragons tells the most valuable stories in the world today. Okay, and we're building toward establishing this, what is a truth in my humble opinion. Okay, all right, here we go. So you had the written tale for millennia, okay, and the Gutenberg press really upped that because the same story could be distributed all over the world very quickly, right? Then came the small screen. The small screen was first. And actually, no, I'm sorry. The big screen was first. And then came the small screen. And incredibly valuable stories have been told on the big and small screen. And they have truly impacted people's lives, right? But, and then we forgot one. Plays. Plays were incredibly valuable. And Shakespeare is considered one of the best authors that ever lived. So you have shamanic tales. Shamanic tales, they're done. At the macro level, they're not really being told anymore. There's a couple of shamans left, but they are a niche. They're a niche distribution. There was a day where mainstream was your shamanic tale, but that day is gone. So shamans have lost the race to compete for most valuable story on Earth. Okay, that time is finished. Okay, is it the written tale? Absolutely not. Print is dying quickly. Right? Is it the small screen? That is very interesting, right? That there is an argument for it being there, but the reality is the streamers. One of the things that's happened is the streamers are really struggling because they pour immense amount of time and effort into building stories, but then they're forgotten within a week. Sometimes they're forgotten even before the weekend is done. Like, people talk about it through the weekend. Monday comes and there isn't even a water cooler, right? So yeah, you worked hard on your story and it was great, but who's talking about it? What's it matter, right? What did it change? Nothing, right? So the small screen really isn't changing much, right? The big screen. This is arguably the biggest innovation humans have had in a long time, and the big screen is huge. It's really big. It really touches people. It really affects people, and it's a big deal, right? Granted. But you know what the most valuable stories in the world are today? I was shocked to figure this out. It's plays, right? So my family was very blessed. We recently met a woman who is she was visiting Pennsylvania. We met her. She is a dyed-in-the-wool for realsies Beverly Hills screenwriter. She writes and produces movies that are mostly watched and enjoyed by women, right? And she has a woman focus on her material, right? So we met this woman, and then she went back to California, but her son stayed in Pennsylvania, and he is a huge fan of plays, right? And he said, hey, I'm going to go up to New York soon, and the reason why is Phantom of the Opera is going to be done. They're not going to be selling it. They're not going to be showing it anymore, right? It's going to go off of Broadway. And I was like, oh, I didn't know you were a play fan, right? And he goes, oh, yeah, I'm a huge fan. I was like, have you ever seen Hamilton? He's like, yeah, I've seen Hamilton twice. And I am a huge fan of Hamilton. I'm a huge fan of Lin-Manuel Miranda. I never got to see Hamilton. I've only seen one Broadway show in my life, and I've seen 2 or 3 off-Broadway shows, right? I got to see Les Mis on Broadway with my wife. It was very nice. And I realized that until Dungeons & Dragons arrived, that was the most valuable story on the planet. And the reason why is it's very clear that plays have surpassed the big screen. And the reason you know this is big screen actors, this happens all the time, big screen actors will abandon big screen careers to return to the theater because it's so personal and because it can truly touch people in a way that big and small screen simply can't. When you put forward a big and a small screen project, there's a lack of personal touch. There's a lack of proximity. There's a lack of passion that is absolutely there in theater. In order to tell a story through theater, you have to be 100% committed. You have to have real talent. You have to be able to project, both literally and figuratively. There's no time for schmuckery on the boards, right? It's the most valuable stories that today before Dungeons & Dragons arrived. Now what's happening is what has really happened with Dungeons & Dragons is personal theater. And I mean personal. The table is a place where the story can be real. There's no time for schmuckery. If you suck, your players will leave, right? The story is crafted second by second, right? For everyone at the table. It is the most personal form of storytelling in the world, with more ability to incorporate the interactions of the participant and its experiencers in a way that is just truly unprecedented. And it matches actual IRL more because it's not just the story of some unconstrained author. It is the story of an artist, the Dungeon Master, the story of the Dungeons & Dragons players. Their direct choices matter. That doesn't happen in plays. And the actors and the artist and the experiencer, the Dungeon Master and the player are interrupted by fate itself. Dungeons & Dragons is the most valuable story in the world being told today because it is the most personal and the most able to actually help a human progress to their next level emotionally and intellectually. Theater had a good run, but it simply doesn't equate to the value of a Dungeons & Dragons story. Dungeons & Dragons stories are the most valuable stories in the world bar none. Nothing comes close. Granted, the vast majority of people running Dungeons and Dragons do not understand the truth of what I just said. It is a truth in my humble opinion. What is your humble opinion? Do you see it? Do you see that the structure Gary Gygax set into place in 1974 has transformed storytelling forever, and that you and I are telling the most valuable stories anywhere on the planet and have more ability to impact the people who are experiencing the art that is being created than plays, than big screen, than small screen, than written, than shaman tales. It's a fact, in my humble opinion. Do you see it? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing. Have a wonderful millennium.